Brooklyn, New York, is a place full of life. It has busy streets, many different neighborhoods, and the constant noise of the city. Right in the middle of this busy area was James Madison High School, a well-known school in the community. This is where LaToya Harris, a 34-year-old English teacher, spent her time. She had a reputation for being tough but fair, and her students both respected and feared her. LaToya was smart and had a sharp way of speaking, which made her a strong leader in her classroom. However, her life at home was very different. LaToya lived in a simple house on a quiet street, far away from the city's loud energy. Her husband, Marcus, was a truck driver who traveled long distances. He was often gone for days or even weeks at a time. Their marriage started with a lot of love, but over the years, it had grown cold. The long times apart and the boring daily routine had pushed them away from each other. LaToya felt lonely and bored, stuck in a life that didn't feel exciting anymore. While Marcus was away on a long trip, LaToya started noticing Jamal Thompson. Jamal was a 17-year-old senior who was very popular. He was a star on the basketball team, tall and athletic, with a smile that everyone loved. But even though he seemed confident, Jamal was struggling. His grades were dropping, and he was at risk of not graduating. LaToya, wanting to help a student, offered to tutor him after school. At first, their meetings were strictly about schoolwork, but as they spent more time together, LaToya began to notice things about Jamal. She saw the way he looked at her and felt a spark when they accidentally touched. There was a strong attraction between them that neither could ignore. One evening, after a long study session, Jamal leaned in close. He whispered something that made her laugh, a real, happy laugh she hadn't felt in years. Without thinking, LaToya touched his arm. In that moment, everything changed. Jamal looked at her with desire, and they shared a passionate kiss that they both knew was forbidden. That kiss started an affair that took over their lives. LaToya knew it was wrong and that she was crossing a line, but the excitement was too much to give up. Jamal made her feel alive and wanted in a way Marcus hadn't for a long time. They began meeting in secret, hiding in empty classrooms, in her car, or in dark corners of the school where no one would find them. But Jamal wasn't the only one who noticed a change in LaToya. Rashad Williams, a 16-year-old football player, also had a crush on his teacher. He was very confident and cocky, and most girls his age liked him. But LaToya was different. She was older and more sophisticated, and Rashad wanted her attention. He started staying after class, making up excuses to be near her. At first, LaToya ignored Rashad's moves. She was already busy with Jamal and didn't want more trouble. But Rashad didn't give up, and eventually, LaToya found herself interested in him. He was different from Jamal, bolder and more aggressive. One day, after a big argument with Jamal, LaToya was alone with Rashad in her classroom. The tension was high, and when Rashad leaned in to kiss her, she didn't stop him. Her relationship with Rashad was different from the one she had with Jamal. With Rashad, it was all about the physical connection and satisfying a need she had felt for a long time. They were reckless, meeting in risky places and pushing the limits of what was safe. LaToya knew she was playing with fire, but she was addicted to the thrill. Rashad made her feel powerful, like she was finally in control of her life. But the fire was only getting hotter. LaToya soon found herself interested in another student named Andre Mitchell. Andre was 18 and a senior, just like Jamal, but he was very different. He was quiet, loved to study, and was very thoughtful. Andre was the kind of student who stayed after class to talk about books and big ideas, not to flirt. He had a serious side that LaToya liked, and his sensitivity reminded her of the dreams she used to have before her life became boring. Andre had always looked up to LaToya from a distance. To him, she was everything he wanted to be: smart, cultured, and strong. When they started spending time alone after school talking about life and literature, he felt a connection deeper than anything he had felt with people his own age. LaToya also felt she could be herself with Andre in a way she couldn't with Jamal or Rashad. Their talks were intense and personal, and it didn't take long for their relationship to move past just being teacher and student. Their first kiss was gentle and a bit nervous, which was a huge change from the wild passion she had with Jamal and Rashad. With Andre, it felt more emotional, like he truly understood her. LaToya knew she was in too deep, but she couldn't bring herself to stop. She loved the attention and the feeling of being wanted by these young men. But as the weeks passed, the stress of keeping 3 secret affairs going started to hurt her. She was always on edge, terrified that someone would find out and ruin her job, her marriage, and her entire life. The excitement was fading, replaced by a constant feeling of fear. The boys were also becoming more demanding and jealous, each wanting more of her time and focus. The situation reached a breaking point when Jamal, Rashad, and Andre all started to suspect they weren't the only ones in LaToya's life. They noticed small things, how she seemed distracted, the secret text messages, and the mistakes she made when she spoke. Jealousy turned into anger and a need to know the truth. Brooklyn, with its crowded streets and nosy neighbors, was about to become the center of a scandal that would ruin lives. LaToya thought she could control everything, but she was about to learn that the web of lies she had created was much too messy. The price she would pay for her secrets was going to be much higher than she ever expected. As autumn arrived and the air got cold, the tension inside James Madison High School was heating up. LaToya felt more and more trapped. What started as a fun escape was now spinning out of control. Jamal was the first to notice something was wrong. Their relationship, which used to be so exciting, now felt different. LaToya seemed far away, and they weren't meeting up as often. Jamal wasn't stupid. He could tell someone else was taking her time. His suspicion grew into a dark jealousy he couldn't ignore. Rashad was also getting tired of the situation. He loved attention and hated being ignored. When LaToya started canceling their plans with weak excuses, Rashad got angry. He started showing up without being asked and demanded her affection. He wasn't used to sharing, and the thought of LaToya seeing someone else made him furious. Andre was quieter about his worries, but he was still uneasy. He noticed how LaToya's mind seemed to wander even when they were alone. Andre was sensitive and actually in love with LaToya in a way the other boys weren't. He could feel her slipping away, and the idea of losing her made him feel terrible. As the days went by, the tension between the boys became too much. They were like hunters circling the same prize, each one fighting for LaToya. Jamal, driven by his jealousy, began to watch her every move. He followed her after school and saw her hiding in hallways and having secret meetings. It didn't take long for him to realize he had competition. One evening, Jamal decided to confront her in the school parking lot. His heart was pounding and he felt betrayed. When LaToya finally walked out of the school, he stepped out of the shadows, looking very angry. "Who is it?" he demanded. "Who else are you seeing?" LaToya froze. She realized her secret life was falling apart. She tried to laugh it off, but Jamal wasn't buying it. He stepped closer, his eyes full of anger. "Don't lie to me, LaToya," he warned, his voice shaking. "I know you're with someone else. I want to know who." LaToya didn't know what to say. Before she could answer, Rashad appeared. He wasn't acting like his usual cool self. He looked very mad. He had seen them together and noticed how close Jamal was to LaToya, and he wasn't going to let it go. "What's going on here?" Rashad asked, his voice full of suspicion as he walked up to them. He looked back and forth between Jamal and LaToya, his face getting darker as he started to put the pieces together. Jamal turned to face him, his fists balled up at his sides. "You tell me," he spat out. "What the hell are you doing here, Rashad?" Before Rashad could say anything, Andre appeared at the edge of the parking lot. He had seen the other two from a distance. Andre was never the type to look for a fight, but seeing the other two boys with LaToya made his worst fears come true. It pushed him to act in a way he never had before. "What are you guys doing?" Andre's voice was quiet, but it had a sharp edge to it that LaToya had never heard. He stepped closer, his eyes locked on LaToya, looking for some kind of sign that what he was seeing wasn't real. LaToya was trapped. All three boys she had been seeing were now standing right in front of her. Their anger, jealousy, and hurt were written all over their faces. There was no way out and no way to calm them down. The truth was finally out, and everything was about to fall apart. Jamal was shaking with emotion. He took a step toward LaToya. "How could you do this?" he asked, his voice cracking. "I thought I actually meant something to you." Rashad, who never backed down from a challenge, shoved Jamal back. "You're not the only one she's been playing, man," he growled. "But I'm not going to let her make a fool out of me." Andre, standing on the edge of the group, felt a wave of emotion he couldn't hold back. He had always been the quiet one, the thinker who stayed out of trouble. But seeing LaToya in the middle of this, being pulled back and forth by Jamal and Rashad, made something inside him snap. "You're both wrong," Andre said, his voice trembling. "She's not some game you can win. She's a person, and you're tearing her apart." Things turned violent very quickly. Rashad swung at Jamal, hitting him with a loud thud. Jamal stumbled back, but immediately lunged at Rashad with all the anger he had been holding in for weeks. The two boys were soon in a brutal fight, throwing punches while LaToya watched in horror. She couldn't stop the mess she had started. Andre, desperate to protect LaToya, tried to pull Rashad away, but he ended up getting dragged into the middle of the fight. The three boys, who used to be friends or at least knew each other, were now enemies. They were fighting like animals over the same woman. LaToya tried to jump in, but it was useless. The boys were too far gone, too blinded by their rage to listen to her. As the fight got worse, it became dangerous. In the heat of the moment, Rashad grabbed a loose metal pipe off the ground and swung it wildly at Jamal. The pipe hit Jamal's head with a sickening crack, and he went down hard. Blood started pouring from a deep cut on his head. LaToya screamed and rushed to his side, but the damage was done. Seeing Jamal lying there motionless made Andre lose control. He tackled Rashad to the ground and started punching him with a fury that surprised even himself. Rashad tried to fight back, but he was dazed and losing his grip on the fight. In the chaos, LaToya scrambled to her feet, her mind racing. She had to do something to stop this before it got even worse. But as she looked around, she realized with a sinking feeling that there was no stopping it. The boys were completely out of control, and she was powerless to stop the violence she had set in motion. Andre, in a total rage, grabbed the metal pipe Rashad had used on Jamal. He swung it at Rashad, knocking him out cold. The fight was finally over, but the damage was already done. Rashad lay there bleeding, and Jamal was still on the ground, barely able to breathe. LaToya stood there frozen, unable to wrap her head around what had just happened. The boys she cared about were broken and covered in blood right at her feet. The weight of her choices finally hit her. All the secrets and lies had led to this, and their lives would never be the same again. The sound of sirens in the distance snapped LaToya back to reality. Someone had called the police. She started to panic, realizing there was no way to hide this or make it right. The truth was out, and the consequences were going to be worse than she ever imagined. When police arrived, everything was a mess. Rashad was taken away in an ambulance, still unconscious, and Jamal was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Andre, looking dazed and covered in blood, was handcuffed and put in the back of a police car. The police questioned LaToya right there, but she felt numb as she tried to explain the situation. Soon, the media found out, and the story became a national scandal. It shocked the entire Brooklyn community, and LaToya's life fell apart in an instant. Her job, her marriage, and her reputation were all gone. She was suspended from school while they investigated, and it didn't take long for the full truth about her relationships with Jamal, Rashad, and Andre to come out. Brooklyn became a hub for gossip. News vans parked outside LaToya's quiet home, filming her downfall from a respected teacher to a public disgrace. Neighbors who used to look up to her now whispered about her behind her back. LaToya felt completely alone. Her husband, Marcus, came home to find his life in ruins. He was deeply hurt and couldn't find it in his heart to forgive her. He filed for divorce and moved away, leaving LaToya to deal with the mess by herself. Without her marriage or her career, the guilt started to crush her. She went from being a confident woman to someone who was filled with shame. She couldn't even look at herself in the mirror, let alone go outside. She fell into a deep depression, constantly questioning the choices that led her to throw her life away. The boys were also dealing with the trauma in their own ways. Jamal was badly hurt and had a long, painful recovery ahead of him. He used to be a star athlete with a bright future, but now he was left with physical and emotional scars that haunted him every day. His dreams of a sports career were over, and he struggled to find a new path in life while dealing with the pain of the betrayal and the violence he had endured. Rashad also faced a difficult road ahead. His injuries were serious, and the whole event really messed with his mental health. He became quiet, kept to himself, and felt very bitter about everything. He had to deal with everyone judging him and face legal trouble, all while trying to get over the trauma of that night. His old confidence was completely gone, and he struggled to figure out who he was after all the chaos. Andre was deeply affected too. He was sent to a juvenile detention center for his part in the fight. It was a rough experience that forced him to realize how serious his actions were. Even though he felt he was only trying to protect LaToya, he still felt guilty about the violence he had been part of. He tried to use his time locked up to think and grow as a person, but he knew that making up for what he did would be a long and hard journey. The scandal left a permanent scar on the Brooklyn community. James Madison High School, which used to be a place for learning, now reminded everyone of betrayal and failure. The school leaders were heavily criticized for not seeing the signs or doing anything to stop it. They tried to rebuild trust, but the damage was done. The school's main focus became student safety and fixing the problems that allowed this to happen in the first place. LaToya's story became a warning to everyone. It showed what can happen when someone in a position of power makes terrible choices. Slowly, the community began to heal as they set up support systems to help everyone deal with the emotional pain. In the end, LaToya's downfall was a huge tragedy. It was a story of broken hearts and the life-ruining consequences of acting on selfish desires. Even long after the news stopped talking about it, the memory of that night stayed with people. It was a reminder of how easily trust can be broken and how one person's choices can change many lives forever. LaToya's life was ruined for good. Once the trial was over and the media moved on, she was left alone to face her new reality. Her marriage was over, her career was gone, and her reputation could never be fixed. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with the chance to ask for parole after 15 years. It was a heavy punishment, but it was the result of the serious crimes she had committed.